In this episode, we talk about rapid urban development in Ahmedabad that has led to the disappearance of dozens of lakes, raising concerns about water security. We also talk about the rare initiation of an impeachment procedure against a sitting High Court judge following allegations of hate speech. But first, we talk about Census. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Starting in 1881, India has conducted a census every decade. However, this streak was broken during the COVID-19 pandemic, when India failed to carry out its 2021 census. But last week, after a 6-year delay, the government announced that the world's largest population enumeration exercise will now take place in 2027, with 1st of March set as the reference date for most parts of the country. Now, the census, of course, is crucial for any kind of policy making and forms the basis for all sorts of analysis within the country. This time, however, it's also important because it has been linked to two key reforms. When we spoke to the Indian Express's deputy editor, Mathew, she told us about them.
One is the Women's Reservation Bill, which has already been passed in 2023, but there is a condition to it that it will be done once a delimitation process is done. And delimitation is linked to census.
Delimitation is the act of redrawing the boundaries of Lok Sabha and state assembly seats to reflect changes in population. The main objective of this exercise is to provide equal representation to equal segments of the population. Historically, delimitation commissions have been set up 4 times, in 1952, 1963, 1973 and 2002. However, the number of Lok Sabha seats and the number of seats in state assemblies have remained unchanged since the delimitation of 1972. This is because in 1976, the government under the emergency amended Article 82 to freeze the number of Lok Sabha seats until after the first census taken after the year 2000. And then in 2002, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government extended that freeze until at least 2026.
So even if there was a census in 21, it would not have been the basis for reshaping the constitutive parliamentary constituencies, but it would have waited for the 31 census in that case, because it is said that it is frozen for 25 years and it will be done on the basis of a census which is conducted after 2026.
And so the 2027 census now becomes not just a delayed enumeration of India's population, but also a trigger for the potential reshaping of India's parliamentary landscape and possibly the implementation of the long-promised 33% reservation for women in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, which, as Liz mentioned earlier, is contingent upon the delimitation process. But when it comes to the census, what truly stands out is its 6-year delay. This is a gap much longer than in most other countries, including India's neighbors such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka.
The census was originally delayed because of COVID, because it was supposed to happen in 2021. And it was delayed because it could not. The dates were almost finalized. In the official note released by the Home Ministry on Wednesday itself said that, the dates were already fixed and it was supposed to begin on 2021 February. But it could not happen because of COVID pandemic. Then, of course, the government, if they wanted, could have done that in between. But the opposition is accusing the government that they did not want to do the census because they want to delay everything. Then 2023, they passed the Women's Bill. And again, that caveat was very surprising that the Women's Bill will be implemented, which is with 33% of the parliamentary constituencies will be reserved for women in parliament and legislative assemblies only after the delimitation. They were not ready to give it on the 543 number, which is the Lok Sabha's strength now. So it is natural for the opposition to say that this was delayed. The timing is according to what they want.
Meanwhile, the opposition, particularly in the southern states, has also been critical of the delimitation exercise. Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has raised concerns, stating that it could reduce the South's political representation, effectively penalizing states that invested early in population control.
The moment the announcement came, Stalin has posted on the social media in the lines that I have warned you type. The Indian constitution mandates that delimitation must follow the first census after 2026. The BJP has now delayed the census to 2027, making their plan clear to reduce Tamil Nadu's parliamentary representation. I had warned about this. It is now unfolding. We need clear answers from the union government.
But despite these concerns, officials in the central government have repeatedly stated that there is no intent to punish southern states for their population control measures.
The government has given very clear indication that we will not let anything that will kind of lead issues in the southern states, because they said that we will address all the concerns they are saying. Even if it is on the population basis, there will be a way to kind of accommodate their concerns. The government, right from Prime Minister to Home Minister to Finance Minister to everyone, make it very clear that it is not going to be biased. It is going to be heavily lenient to the northern state because the southern state have take the measures to control the population. We will not punish them. There is absolutely no inclination from the government so far to kind of quote unquote punish the southern state. And also it is very dangerous because a north-south divide it's actually, how bad it is. So no party in power want to have that. And the government, like I said, right from Prime Minister have made it very clear that we will not allow the citizens in the south or the leaders in the south or political parties in the south, governments in the south to feel that they are being sidelined or they are being isolated because they have taken certain adequate measures to control the population, which was very much needed for the country.
Now, besides this, another important aspect related to upcoming census is caste enumeration. After decades of political back and forth, this census will include data on caste, although not in the structured categories that many might expect.
The issue is that here the government has not come out with anything. They have not given any clarity on this so far officially. But unofficially, informally, they are saying the caste census, which is a political issue. Especially after Rahul Gandhi has taken it up as the main thing. And also in the last election, 24 Lok Sabha election, it has become a hot issue. To an extent, it was the highlight of the opposition campaign. And Rahul Gandhi even said that once the caste census come, we will lift the higher limit, that 50% cap will be removed. So in the backdrop of this, the government came out and said that we are going to have caste census. But the government then also, when the cabinet decision came out and the minister announced it, then also they didn't clarify, they didn't elaborate on it. Even now in the caste, they announced the census, but they have not elaborated. But the process will legally begin when the notification comes, which is tentatively on June 16th. So when the notification comes, I think there will be more details in it. But it is learned that, the caste census is not going to be a OBC categorization like SC/ST. The SCs and STs will be registered and there will be a categorization in the census. But the OBC will not be as if, section is not likely to be there. Instead, they will register your caste. You are asked, what is your caste? I say I'm a Yadav. Okay, Yadav. They will write it. They just list the caste.
So basically, the government is only going to collect caste names as declared by individuals, but will not classify them under umbrella terms like OBC.
Because in state to state, OBCs are different. One OBC in one state may not be an OBC in the other state. So there is this issue in there. So they are not going to have a section called OBC, but they will just list the caste. That is what they said. Which means, last time when the caste census was not under the Census Act, but the enumeration happened, the number of these so-called other backward class OBC caste were 38 lakh or something. Okay, so which means even if you get the massive number of caste, the names, you cannot do anything about it. You cannot take any affirmative action on the basis of that. Like for example, like I said, one particular caste which is an OBC in Himachal Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh may not be in Uttarakhand. So, it is a very difficult task to put the OBCs like this Kurmi and Kori. They are supposed to be similar, but they are different,
And Liz says that even after the caste enumeration is done, the government hasn't given any hints that they'll categorize these castes. Although more details about this are likely to become clear in a few weeks, so far what we know is that the census will take place in 2 phases.
In the census, there are 2 phases. One is the house count, and the population count happens in the last month. Just the population, the number, how many people live in this house, how many people are in this family. That happens only a month. And again, the data will start coming, I think it will take time, of course. See, 2011 census happened just like this, February, March. But the first data came on April 30th, 2013. But now the government says that it is more, electronic, technologically we are more advanced. That's not like it's been more than 10 years. So we have progressed a lot. We have gone forward a lot. So we might get it faster. But even then, the government officials admit that the entire data we will get only in 3 years. Like it will take 3 years to, tabulate and, put it together. And so, but the population is expected to be known in a few months, like from March 27. Maybe by June, July or something, you might get what is the population of India.
And next, we shift our focus to the lakes of Ahmedabad. Across many Indian cities, rapid urban expansion has often come at the cost of the environment. And perhaps the clearest example of that is the slow disappearance of natural wetlands. In Ahmedabad, for instance, this loss has now been officially recorded. According to an internal report by the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, accessed by the Indian Express, 37 of the city's 172 listed lakes have effectively vanished. This finding came into the spotlight during a large-scale demolition drive around the Chandola Lake, where at least 12,500 illegal structures were cleared from nearly 4 lakh square meters of land. Now, while officials claim the drive targeted encroachments, including those allegedly linked to illegal Bangladeshi immigrants, the report highlighted a broader issue, that the city's lakes are being erased not just by informal settlements but also by government-sanctioned development. In this segment, we speak to the Indian Express's Brendan Dabhi to understand what the AMC's report reveals and what it could mean for the city's water security. Brendan, for someone unfamiliar with Ahmedabad's geography, can you tell us why these lakes are so central to the city's ecology and civic infrastructure?
So, lakes are always important to any city, right? Ultimately, the source of drinking water, the source of any kind of, fresh water, it needs to be there in the city. Apart from that, lakes are also important to decrease the urban heat island effect. It's important to make sure that there's no waterlogging or flooding in the city. So, lakes are vital to the ecology of any environment.
Right, and we are talking about this because of this report which talks about the lakes in the city which have vanished. So, can you tell us what do they mean when they say a lake has vanished?
Right, so there are supposed to be 172 lakes within the jurisdiction of Ahmedabad city. Of those 172 lakes, 37 have vanished. So when you say vanished, it can mean multiple things. In the case of Ahmedabad, it either means that there is a lake and it has no water, or there is encroachment on it, or the lake has completely vanished, in which case it is either flat land, there is nothing to depict, that shows a lake, or it has been completely changed into something else, like there are structures on it. So the lake may have only dried up, the lake may have no structure, or the lake may have completely vanished. So these are the 3 things that I mean by vanished.
And Brendan, you write that many of these lakes haven't just dried up, they've been actively built over. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, so there are a lot of examples. Based on this report, we have visited several of these lakes, or erstwhile lakes we can call them, wherein we have found so many different things on them, from finding government, revenue quarters, housing society, to residential blocks, to cow sheds, to parking lots and telecom towers. We have found so many things built on these lake plots. So where there were lakes earlier, now there is construction on top of them. When we understand that poor people might build around these lakes and cause encroachments, but how can there be wholesale societies, water distribution centers and government buildings on them? And in some cases, even these lake plots have been divided by roads. there are roads passing through them. So this is the situation.
And you highlight that the recent Chandola Lake demolition was quite aggressive. So can you tell us what has happened so far in the region?
Yes, so in the Chandola Lake demolitions, after all the people were evicted and as per the AMC, more than 12,500 structures were demolished. Now basically they're trying to develop the whole lake as a lakefront. The land barriers between the larger Chandola Lake and the two smaller or lesser Chandola lakes will be demolished and it will be turned into one large lake of 11 lakh square meters and then filled with water.
And also, have there been any other encroachments like this on the other former lakes?
Yes, so just like in Chandola, there are residential and commercial encroachments on multiple of these lakes, right? Where, poor people have built on the slopes of these lakes. In some cases, there has been so much construction around some of these lakes and smaller ponds that there is no access road to them anymore. That they have been completely covered on all four sides with buildings. And in some cases, they have completely ceased to exist where they are flat plots of land. And we only know about them that these were lakes earlier from the documentary evidence, right? Where the revenue department has these documents called the Satbar or the land registration documents, which mention that there is a water body on this particular plot of land. It is only through that we know that these were lakes earlier. So apart from residential, there are allegations by politicians, that some of these lakes have also been encroached in a commercial manner, that in some places there are shops located on lakes and that impact fee regulation applications have been filed to regularize these encroachments. While obviously that is not going to happen, it just goes to show the level of encroachments that happen when attention is not paid to such a crucial part of an urban ecosystem.
And Brendan, you write about the transfer of lake ownership from the State Revenue Department to the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation or AMC, which has been delayed. So how has this, complicated efforts to prevent encroachments?
So in light of the evictions at Chandola Lake and the development thereof, several politicians in the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation as well as in the Gujarat government, and this is from both sides, the Congress and the BJP, have raised the issues of encroachment on all the other lakes of Ahmedabad city, right? So then that came into, limelight now. Also brought about the question of ownership of these lakes. Now, usually the lake plot, the plot of land on which the lake is located, has mostly been under the ownership of the revenue department of the Gujarat government through the collectorate, through the Ahmedabad collectorate. So just imagine that out of 172 lakes in Ahmedabad city, 142 are owned by the collectorate, while only about 30 were under the jurisdiction of the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. So that started the process of the corporation seeking the ownership of these lakes so that they could be developed and construction could be conducted on them. In fact, it is surprising to many that Chandola Lake itself currently also is under the jurisdiction of the collectorate and not under the AMC. So every time they had to undertake demolitions and evictions, they had to take permission from the collectorate. And in fact, as of now, the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has sought ownership of the 142 lakes that are under the collectorate. Of these, only 27 lakes have been handed over to the civic body, while 82 are yet to be measured and 33 lakes are still under due consideration. The fact that 82 lakes are still being measured is also of importance here, because since these were under the collectorate, there was no need to check them, to measure them, to survey them over all these decades. And sources told us that officials, haven't visited some of these lakes for over several years, leading to all these encroachments and so on. So it is only now that they are being measured and surveyed before being handed over to the AMC.
And you also mentioned about AMC's Lake Interlinking Project. So can you tell us what is it and what it aims to do?
Yes. So part of the AMC seeking ownership of these lakes also makes sense because it is not only, development as lakefronts and so on and so forth, but these lakes also need to be developed due to the oncoming monsoon just now and to be used as stormwater drains. So Ahmedabad, like all other major cities, also face the problem of waterlogging during monsoons. And in the last 2 years, we have seen severe waterlogging in the city, wherein, several people have had their cars that were parked in the basements having been destroyed by accumulated water. So once the AMC has ownership of these lakes. They mean to deepen these lakes to increase their capacity, their carrying capacity, and then link some of these lakes that are near to each other, so that not only can they be filled all year round through the sewage treatment plant water, but during monsoon they can accommodate all the storm water that flows through the roads and goes into them. And when one lake fills up, the gravity and gradient on land can fill up the other lakes, and so at least mitigate some of the waterlogging problem that Ahmedabad faces.
And lastly, Brendan, can you talk about the broader risks that come with the erasure of urban lakes?
Yes, so apart from having the lakes as reservoirs of fresh water and being used as stormwater drains, so urban lakes are very, very important, especially in terms of the harsh summers that Ahmedabad faces. As you know, Ahmedabad was a city to have the very first heat action plan in Asia. That's because temperatures can go up very, very high, while 2025 has been a year of aberration where the heat has been lower than other years, but usually the heat is very bad in Ahmedabad. And that is why it is necessary not only to have green cover, but it's also necessary to have blue cover in Ahmedabad, which is water bodies. Now, Ahmedabad already has the Sabarmati river passing through it. And just now there are lakes like the Kakaria Lake in Maninagar that are filled, right? And the Vastrapur Lake. But it needs to develop more of these lakes so that there is a cooling effect through these water bodies, which will in turn decrease the urban heat island effect that is caused by concretization of a major city.
And in the end, we talk about the impeachment procedure of Allahabad High Court sitting judge following allegations of hate speech. In India's parliamentary history, the impeachment of a sitting High Court judge is a rare and procedurally rigorous event. The process, governed by constitutional provisions and the Judges Inquiry Act, begins with the submission of a motion supported by members of parliament. The matter of Justice Shekhar Kumar Yadav of the Allahabad High Court has now entered this formal stage. As reported by the Indian Express's Damini Nath and Liz Mathew, 6 months after opposition members of parliament submitted a representation signed by 55 Rajya Sabha members seeking the impeachment of Justice Yadav, Rajya Sabha Chairman Jagdeep Dhankar is expected to consider forming an inquiry committee. The demand arises from a speech made by Justice Yadav at a Vishwa Hindu Parishad or VHP event on 8th of December last year, where he made remarks filled with communal slurs, stereotypes and prejudice, specifically targeting the Muslim community.
हमारे यहाँ बच्चा पैदा होता है, बचपन काल से उसको ईश्वर की ओर बढ़ाया जाता है, वेद मंत्र पढ़े जाते हैं, अहिंसा के बारे में ले जाया जाता है, तमाम चीजें बताई जाती हैं। लेकिन आपके यहाँ तो बचपन से बच्चे को सामने रख करके वध किया जाता है पशुओं का। तो आप कैसे अपेक्षा करते हैं कि सहिष्णु होगा वो, उदार होगा वो? तो ये कहने में बिल्कुल गुरेज नहीं है कि हिंदुस्तान है, हिंदुस्तान में रहने वाला बहुसंख्यक के अनुसार ही देश चलेगा। यही कानून है। आप इसको ये कह करके नहीं कह सकते कि हाई कोर्ट के जज होकर के आप ऐसा बोल रहे हैं।
In the clip we played, he says that it is taught to us that even an ant should not be killed. That is perhaps why we are tolerant and generous. Why? Because when a child is born in our community, they are taught about God, the Vedas and mantras right from the childhood. They are told about non-violence, but in your community, animals are slaughtered in the presence of children. How do you expect the person to become tolerant and kind? Now, the opposition delegation accusing Justice Yadav of hate speech submitted the impeachment notice to the Rajya Sabha chairman in December. To proceed, the motion must be backed by at least 50 members in the Rajya Sabha or 100 members in the Lok Sabha. In the current case, verification of the submitted signatures is underway. Dhankar told the House on 21st of March that 55 signatures had been received, but one member had signed the document twice and denied the signature. MPs were asked via email to confirm their signatures. The verification process will determine whether the requirement is met to initial formal proceedings. Opposition sources told the Indian Express that the duplication occurred due to logistical confusion during the collection process, as multiple copies of the motion were being circulated. They added that even with one invalid signature, the count remains above the required threshold. According to Article 124, subsection 4 of the Constitution, a judge of the Supreme Court, or under Article 218, a High Court judge may be removed by Parliament for proved misbehavior or incapacity. The process involves an inquiry committee and votes in both houses of Parliament. Sources confirm that once the verification is complete, a formal inquiry committee could be set up whether Parliament is in session or not. The monsoon session is scheduled to begin on 21st of July. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar, produced by Shashank, Bhargava, and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can share it with someone you think may like it, a friend or someone in family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.